February 14, 2003. Aurora mine site, north of Fort McMurray, Alberta. The temperature that morning was minus 45 degrees Fahrenheit. At 5:47 a.m., Fleet Maintenance Supervisor Gary Hennessy received a call that immediately caught his attention. Unit 14 had lost drive. The machine was a Komatsu D275A-2 Dozer, one of 6 operating at Aurora during the winter season. The operator had followed the procedure exactly as it was written. The engine had been started. The machine had idled for the required 20 minutes. Everything had been done according to the manual. And yet, less than a minute after engaging the transmission, the machine stopped moving. The engine continued to idle normally. No dramatic noises, no immediate warning alarms, just a transmission that no longer responded. What happened next would reveal a problem that had never been published in Komatsu's service documentation. A missing piece of information hidden within cold weather test data. A detail that would eventually cost more than $180,000, trigger changes across an entire fleet, and reshape how heavy equipment operators throughout Alberta approached extreme cold starts. At Aurora in early 2003, 6 Komatsu D275A-2 Dozers were responsible for overburden push work and bench maintenance operations. Each machine moved thousands of cubic yards of material every shift. Downtime was expensive. Unexpected failures were even more costly. Gary Hennessy had spent 14 years overseeing heavy equipment maintenance operations. His responsibilities included failure analysis, fleet reliability, and ensuring that maintenance procedures matched real-world operating conditions. Unit 14 would become one of the most important investigations of his career. The Komatsu D275A-2 used a TORQFLOW transmission system with 3 forward speeds and 3 reverse speeds. Direction changes and gear selection relied entirely on hydraulic actuation. For the transmission to function correctly, the clutch packs required sufficient hydraulic pressure to fully engage. If that pressure wasn't available, the clutch discs could begin slipping under load, and in extreme cold conditions, that risk increased significantly. What nobody knew that morning was that the published warm-up procedure was based on time, not condition. The manual instructed operators to idle the machine for 20 minutes when temperatures dropped below 14 degrees Fahrenheit. But it never specified what hydraulic conditions actually needed to be achieved before transmission engagement. That missing distinction would become the key to understanding why Unit 14 failed. The operator assigned to Unit 14 wasn't inexperienced. He had spent more than 12 years operating heavy equipment and had accumulated 5 years specifically on Komatsu D275 series machines. He completed his walk-around inspection, started the machine at 5:19 a.m., and followed the procedure exactly as it had been written. 20 minutes later, he moved the transmission selector into low forward. The machine should have moved. Instead, a failure sequence had already begun. By 5:19 a.m., Unit 14's engine was running at idle. Outside, the temperature remained at minus 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Inside the machine, the warming process had begun. Engine oil started gaining temperature relatively quickly, but hydraulic systems don't warm evenly. The D275A-2 relied on an extensive hydraulic circuit running through pumps, valves, control assemblies, and transmission components distributed throughout the machine. Heat entered the system primarily through the hydraulic pumps and engine interfaces. But while some areas of the circuit began warming, Large portions of the system remained exposed to extreme ambient temperatures. The oil itself became the problem. Aurora's fleet used ISO VG32 hydraulic oil during winter operations, under normal operating conditions. This fluid provided the characteristics necessary for reliable system performance. At moderate temperatures, viscosity remained within design limits. At -45 degrees Fahrenheit, those conditions changed dramatically. As temperature drops, hydraulic oil thickens. But the relationship isn't linear. Below certain thresholds, viscosity increases rapidly. The fluid becomes significantly more resistant to movement through pumps, valves, and hydraulic passages. This resistance directly affects pressure generation. And for the D275A2 transmission, hydraulic pressure wasn't optional, it was essential. The TORQFLOW transmission depended entirely on hydraulic force to engage its clutch packs properly. Without sufficient engagement pressure, the clutch discs could not generate enough clamping force to lock together under engine load. Instead of transferring power efficiently, they would begin slipping against one another, and slip creates heat. Gary Hennessy understood this relationship well. After 14 years supervising heavy equipment maintenance operations, he knew cold weather failures rarely resulted from a single event. They developed as a chain reaction. One condition created another. One small deficiency exposed the next weakness. When Unit 14 lost drive, Hennessy immediately suspected that something more complicated than operator error had occurred. According to Komatsu's published procedure, operators were instructed to idle the machine for 20 minutes whenever temperatures dropped below 14 degrees Fahrenheit. The procedure provided a time requirement, but it never identified the condition that 20 minutes was proposed to achieve. No minimum hydraulic oil temperature, no transmission circuit pressure target, no guidance for temperatures far below the stated threshold. At Aurora Mine, those missing details mattered, because -45 degrees Fahrenheit wasn't slightly below the recommendation. It was an entirely different operating environment. The operator assigned to Unit 14 had completed every required step: walk-around inspection, engine startup, 20 minutes at idle, no shortcuts, no deviations, nothing suggested improper operation. At 5:39 a.m., exactly 20 minutes after startup, the operator selected low forward. The transmission received hydraulic actuation pressure. The clutch packs attempted to engage, but the system wasn't ready. Later testing performed under identical environmental conditions would reveal that hydraulic circuit pressure remained well below the level required for full clutch engagement. The transmission hadn't failed instantly. It had entered a process measured in seconds. As the clutch discs slipped under load, friction generated heat. Heat reduced oil film protection between contact surfaces. Reduced protection increased slip. Increased slip generated even more heat. The cycle fed itself. Within moments, the transmission was moving toward failure. And neither the operator nor the machine had received any warning that the conditions necessary for engagement had never actually been achieved. The manual had provided a number: 20 minutes. What it failed to provide was the information that mattered most: whether the machine itself was ready. For Gary Hennessy, answering that question became the focus of the investigation. Because if Unit 14 had followed the procedure exactly, then the procedure itself needed to be examined. And somewhere inside the gap between published guidance and real-world conditions, the cause of the failure was waiting to be found. At 5:39 a.m., Unit 14 engaged low forward. On paper, everything had gone according to procedure. The engine had warmed for 20 minutes. The operator had followed every step outlined in the manual. But inside the transmission, a different reality existed. Hydraulic pressure reached the clutch packs. The clutch packs attempted to engage. The available pressure wasn't enough. What happened next wasn't a sudden mechanical failure. It was a progression, a sequence that unfolded over the next 51 seconds. The clutch discs initially made contact. Under normal conditions, hydraulic force would generate enough clamping pressure to fully lock the friction surfaces together. Power from the engine would transfer through the transmission without significant heat generation. But Unit 14 wasn't operating under normal conditions. The hydraulic fluid remained extremely viscous. The transmission circuit couldn't develop sufficient engagement pressure. Instead of locking together, the clutch discs slipped. Slip under engine torque creates friction. Friction creates heat. Heat changes everything. As temperatures increased inside the clutch packs, the protective oil film separating the friction surfaces began breaking down. With less lubrication between contact surfaces, slippage increased. Increased slippage generated even more heat. The cycle accelerated. Within seconds, the transmission entered a self-sustaining failure process. Between 5:39 and 5:40 a.m., transmission oil temperature climbed rapidly. What had started as a cold start procedure issue was becoming thermal damage inside the transmission itself. The machine continued idling. From the operator's perspective, there was no catastrophic event, no explosion, no grinding noise, no obvious warning that major damage was occurring. Then the transmission stopped responding. The engine maintained normal idle speed. The machine simply lost its ability to move. For experienced operators, silence can be more alarming than noise. After years working in northern Alberta conditions, Unit 14's operator immediately recognized that something wasn't right. Rather than forcing the machine, he disengaged the transmission at the first indication of abnormal behavior. That decision likely prevented even greater damage. Gary Hennessy arrived at Unit 14 at approximately 6:04 a.m. The engine remained at idle. 17 minutes after the initial event, transmission oil temperatures were still significantly elevated. The amount of retained heat immediately suggested that this wasn't a minor operational issue. Something substantial had happened inside the transmission. Komatsu Canada's regional service representative conducted an initial assessment. The preliminary conclusion was straightforward. Insufficient warm-up time. Operator error. According to the initial review, the operator had failed to follow the published procedure before engaging the transmission. It was a logical assumption. Cold weather failures often involved rushed startups. Procedures sometimes weren't followed completely. But Unit 14 was different. The operator's logbook documented the startup sequence. Engine start at 5:19 a.m. Transmission engagement at 5:39 a.m. Exactly 20 minutes. Exactly what the manual required. The operator had done everything correctly. That forced Hennessy to ask a different question. If the operator followed the procedure precisely, why did the transmission fail anyway? His answer was simple. A procedure exists to achieve a condition, not to complete a checklist. Komatsu's published procedure specified time. It never specified the condition that time was intended to produce. That distinction changed the entire investigation. The problem wasn't whether 20 minutes had passed. The problem was whether the machine had actually reached a state where safe transmission engagement was possible. Those are not the same thing. Hennessy began arranging additional testing using another D275 ACE-2 operating under nearly identical environmental conditions. He wanted data, not assumptions. If Unit 14 had failed because the machine wasn't truly ready after 20 minutes, the hydraulic system would provide the evidence. And somewhere inside those pressure readings, he believed the real cause of the failure would finally become visible. The investigation was no longer focused on operator actions. It was focused on the gap between published procedures and actual machine requirements. And that gap would prove far more expensive than anyone had anticipated.